Jeff, have you ever caught a 26-inch bass?
No, I have not.
Have you ever
Ne-
got 113 inches on a tournament?
never.
Would you like to hear
No.
that story?
I never had a bag that would probably weigh that. So, just so you know,
Well,
in the kayak, I think 24 inches is the biggest fish I've caught in the kayak, and that was scouting for a tournament, and that was one of the oddest things because it was the only fish I caught that day. But
we'll go right into an intro here, and we'll be right back with Jeff Winston from Southern Pond Fishing and Ricky. I should have said Ricky how to pronounce his last name. I'll get to that. All right, boys and girls, it is Bass Kayak and Beers time here at the Real Life. We got Jeff Winston, host of the Southern Punch podcast. Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct.
Jeff, thank you so much. We met at Lake Cotto. Have you fished since Lake Cotto?
I've fished a little bit since then, but like I was telling you before, I've never fished that place in a kayak. I'd only fished it in a boat, but a beautiful place to fish. Good time of the year. I wish the weather had been a little more cooperative for my game plans.
What was your game plan on that, by the way?
My game plan was to beat up the trees, but well, it turned out I was going to beat the trees up out in the deeper water. But on Sunday, I decided to move in a lot more, and I caught fish. I just could not get that fifth fish, and they were just smaller fish. And it turned out that the bigger fish were out there in the deeper water. But I was trying to get out of the wind. I was tired of fighting it. But that and I was basically pushing that the wacky rig, and which I'm not a big fan of anyway. Yeah, I'm more into punching and flipping, but I kept that in my hands all day. I caught fish. I just didn't get the inches I was looking for, and I should have recognized with the water with the wind and the change of the weather that I probably should have been looking for a reaction bite, and I just didn't. It just didn't dawn on me till it was too late.
Yeah, it was a great tournament, a great time. And by the way, for those out there listening, and watching on the live show, feel free to share it. I am sharing it on the Texas Kayak Bass League only because we're going to be interviewing Ricky. So I hope it's okay with the guys here at Texas Kayak Bass League, Chris Morales and Christopher Delgado. If not, please delete. But feel free to share it, guys. If you're watching, listening, leave me in the comments. Let me know where you are listening from. And if you happen to be listening on our MP3 format on Monday, I think the show airs, and it's going to be on every podcast streaming platform. Please feel free to give us your 5-star reviews. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, does help out. So we got to have a great episode for you guys. I mean, Jeff Winston, great dude. I met at Cotto. We're going to talking a little bit about Southern Punch podcast, and then we're going to bring Ricky in, which the star of the show, really the guy who stole the show this weekend with a 113-inch bag limit. I still amazed at that. Yeah. 26-inch kicker. That's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, it's that dream fish we all look for,
Yeah. But dream fish, dream tournament for real.
Yeah, right. I'll give you a quick rundown of my podcast. It's Southern Punch. It's on all social media. The second season will come out next week. It started off with me just looking to promote my Southern Punch and promote the local fishing out of Louisiana. I'm basically out of Louisiana, South Louisiana, and shows kind of go over the first season. Kind of goes over some of the tournament guys that travel. I'm going to add kayak stuff into it as I go, but it's just basically just mainly bass fishing. We do have a couple episodes where me and my friends talk about wrecking boats and tearing our equipment up, and we have a lot of fun. Southern Punch is also a brand of my tungsten fishing weights, and my logo on the website. Nice. Logo looks like that. If I turn it right. and sell hats and stuff like that. But it's been fun. I'm that's how we met. Talk about the podcast, and it's a fun thing to do. I'm looking forward to adding some more kayak stuff in it, getting some of my kayak friends and involved in it. But we cover everything. I mean, we even talk about the fundraisers and the things that people don't realize that fishermen get involved in. We do a big thing for the Wounded Warriors. Actually, next month I'll be at Toledo Bend taking guys from the Wounded Warriors fishing, which is it's a great opportunity. It's giving back, and that's what when we get to a certain point in our life, it's good to do that, to just give back some.
If anybody wants to get involved and help out with that, the Wounded Warriors projects, I've heard a lot about it. Where can people find out more information? Who can they contact if they want to help out? Maybe donate rods or, be one of those guides that take out some of our, heroes on the water.
Right. The easiest way to for me to get you involved is basically get you to email me at jeffwinston at southernpunch.net. And I can get you hooked up with the guys out of Texas. I don't know a whole lot of people out of Texas. The Louisiana guys, I know a few. But like one of the fishing clubs I'm in, the West Side Bassmasters, we have a July tournament where we put on for the Wounded Warriors. And if you're a vet, you fish for free. We're trying to set up a kayak event for that too. But this one's out of boats. Veterans fish for free. Last year we raised $50,000, and that's what helps.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's what helps. Me going to Toledo Bend and stuff. They're going to bring in the guys from all different states to come over there. That's what the money goes to. So I can get you involved in that. I mean, we're always looking for sponsors for that. It's a great turnout, especially if you come and fish it, because everybody gets up. We get enough stuff donated with raffles and giveaways. Everybody has a good time. Everybody gets something. The guys from the Wounded Warriors, they're great. It's just like I get the chills every time I think about it. I've been doing it for years, the last 2 or 3 years. It's just a great event. I mean, it is a great cause, and everybody has fun.
What have been one of the most touching, feedbacks you gotten from people that have either taken part or benefit from being part of it?
Well, for me, when you're sitting in a boat and you got I'll back up on another guy I met. This poor guy got blown up not once, but twice. He has so much stress in his life and everything else. And he talks about it, and he's so humble, but you look at this man, I call him young man, a few years younger than me. And just listen to his stories. You don't realize how thankful your life is until you listen to their stories and realize they did that, protecting our country. And I'll end up crying when we start talking about some of these guys. It's a real emotional experience, and it's amazing how these guys, we all want to win. We go fishing tournaments. We want to win. We want to win. These guys, they want to win and all that, but when they're out there in nature, they're relaxed.
Yeah.
You got some of these guys getting phone calls every few hours from their sponsor checking on them, make sure they're still breathing. So I mean, it's a big deal. You don't realize it till you sit down with some of these guys and talk. And like the Toledo Bend trip, this first time I get to make that trip, and it's going to be, from what I hear, one of the most amazing things I'll ever get to do.
That's amazing, Jeff, and props to you for what you're doing. And there you go. If you want to help out, you got the info. Before we bring Ricky in, tell us a little bit about where people, your podcast. When does it air? Where can people listen to it? Where can people follow you on social media? I think you mentioned it already, but if you want to recap.
Social media, I got an Instagram, I got Facebook, and you can look up either Southern Punch or Jeff Winston. I ended up adding extra Facebooks and stuff like that because some of them were getting so filled up with other stuff, but could do that. As far as the podcast, every Thursday for the next, I guess, 3 months, it should drop every Thursday. And some, like I said, some will be about kayaking. This next one, it's mainly going to be me talking about kayaking and fishing out of a kayak, but I'll have a few of the pros coming in from Louisiana, some of the guys in the elite, bass fishing the elite. I got a couple of buddies that fish that, so I'm gonna bring them in and have them talk. And Shows usually 35 to an hour long, and we try to just cover as much as we can.
That's awesome. Well, there you go. Give it a listen. You're going to enjoy it. So let's bring in our star of the show, Mr. Ricky. Ricky, I got to apologize. First of all, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Juelg, Juelg.
Yeah, I wouldn't have come close to that.
Juelg.
Juelg. There you go. Ricky, congratulations. Ever in your wildest dreams, you thought you were able to break 113-inch?
I was hoping I could break 100. So anything like that is just, yes, way beyond my wildest dreams, for sure.
It is amazing, man. And for those that are just joining us now, and you missed the backstory here, Ricky just won the Texas Kayak Bass League at Houston County Lake with a total of 113 inches with a whopping 26-inch bass. The funny thing about this, Ricky, for me personally, is I went from the 26-inch board to the 32-inch board because, I may do some saltwater fishing, and, obviously redfish, trout, they're going to get bigger. But that's the only reason why I went to a bigger board. Were you worried at some point when you got it? It's like, this may be too big for my 26-inch board?
I really was. And when I was trying to get that thing situated on the board and it and lay that tail, and I was just, it's like slow motion in your mind laying that tail down, and it just kept going further, and it's like, oh my goodness, if you looked at the tail, it was all eat up. He has a little bitty old short tail. If he had a decent tail, I don't know how big she would have been.
Wow.
But it was just like, I don't know, it was crazy.
So here on the screen, if you're watching on the live, that is a absolute butter bowl. I don't know how big your hands are, but they look really small. It looks like you got baby hands right there.
Yeah. Well, you can see his tail, how beat up it was. It was nothing to peach, really, even. But she was plenty strong.
That
is
an
amazing.
My goodness.
And like you said, if you would have been, go ahead, Jeff. I apologize.
No, I'm just wondering if my board is 26 inches or 32 now. You got me thinking about it. But go ahead.
No, that is amazing. I've wondered if you catch a bass that's, let's say, 27-inch, what would the score be? I'm assuming they just scored it as 26-inch on the tournament. I would have to ask Chris Morales on that. But again, that's a butterball. What was the total weight on it?
I ended up when I weighed it, when I first looked at it, it was almost 12, and on the scale, I had a boga scale. And then when I went and took the picture of it, after I got the picture and looked at it when I got home, it showed that the tail was resting on the board, and it was like 11. So I'm calling it 11 and a half, but even though I know it was closer to 12.
Do you know that you actually broke the record, at least for length, for that lake?
No, I didn't know that. I really didn't. I had no idea. That's crazy.
I was researching yesterday. The biggest bass caught there, I think, is 25 inches. You broke that by like an inch.
Nice.
So congratulations on that. I'm assuming you said on your previous tournament you submitted a Sherlonker, right?
I did a 24 and a quarter, and that was one of the fish that I caught during the last tournament. That was by far my biggest bass then. The day before that in practice, I had caught I think it was a 22 and a half, if I can remember. And that was my biggest bass. So I've been just like breaking my records every time I fish.
Yeah, call me when you break this one.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, it would do.
Ricky, how long have you been bass fishing?
I started it, I think 2020. I started doing a little bit of fishing around the house in some ponds and stuff, and then last year I started this trail it was Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League. Then that was my first real year of trying to figure out bass.
Last year was your first tournament.
Yes, sir. So I fished the whole trail last year. And out of it, I tied for 11th or 10th place once, and then I got third at the Sabine, and then that's how that went. And I was really excited about just having that kind of year. And so really new to this.
Jeff, I've only bass fished for 4 years, so I can't hate on that. But I know you fished for a lot longer. How does it make you feel?
That's what's rolling through my head right now. I mean, in Louisiana, when you're born into hunting and fishing. I mean, you didn't have a choice, and yeah, I only been kayak fishing to defend myself for about 3 years now. And but I'm addicted to it. I leave my boat here and go run around in a kayak.
I grew up in the country down in South Texas, and I did a lot of hunting and fishing, but we were 45 minutes from Rockport and not far from Baffin Bay. And so I grew up around some really good saltwater fishing, and that's what my daddy was, saltwater fisherman. So that's what I did.
Well, tell me this. What's your biggest redfish? What's your longest redfish?
I think it was 43 and a half is what.
Yeah.
So that's about.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
I think Ricky, if you're there, I think he just froze.
Yeah, he sure did.
He sure did. Well, let's continue this conversation. Let's see if we can have him come back. Ricky, if you're listening, just try to log off and come back in, and we'll continue the conversation. But Jeff, oh, here it is. He's back.
Yeah, he's back.
There you go. You freeze for a second, Ricky, there.
Welcome back, Ricky.
Thank you, guys.
So, Ricky, let me ask you this. Now that you picked up
again?
bass fishing.
Yeah, froze again.
But you can listen to, you can hear us, right, Ricky?
You there?
Yeah, he's not there.
Oh.
Well, let's do this. Let's continue conversation until we get back in. So, Jeff, man, I'm telling you, to go from, trying to get to learn bass fishing, right? And I've done it for like 4 years. To just find success that quickly kind of reminds me a little bit of forgot his first name, Brian Nelly.
Oh yeah,
Brian Nelly. He went from saltwater fishing to winning the TOC.
I don't get it. I think in my defense, I think the more I learn about fishing, the more it screws me up, because you start second guessing everything you're doing. You start, instead of just going fishing, it's like the electronics. I'm not a big fan of it for me to use. I mean, I know it helps everybody, but I find myself with my Humminbird 360 when I'm in my boat, I'm looking down instead of just fishing, and I don't know. I mean, I've had, good moments in my career and stuff, but 26-inch bass, I mean, golly.
That is amazing. 113. Imagine, let me see how the second place winner, by the way, shout out to Tyler Howell, which is a great angler, by the way. If anybody doesn't not familiar with Texas fishing, Tyler Howell is in fact a great angler as well. And let's take a look at his, because you kind of feel bad for Tyler at this point, because I mean, and if we can get Ricky back here,
wow,
he'll fill us in on how it played out. But I mean, you got a 22 and a quarter, a 21 and a quarter, a 21 and 18 and 2 18 and 3/4 with 102 inches. You're thinking, okay, I got this in the bag.
I got this.
And imagine coming up to the award show and finding out you lost by 11 inches. All right, we got Ricky back in. Ricky, can you see us?
Yes, sir.
Ricky, so we were just talking about, how Tyler Howell, which is, by the way, a great angler here in Texas. Have you met Tyler Howell in person?
I have not met him, but I've seen him on the leaderboard many times. I know he's a really good angler.
Have you talked to him? Have you messaged him? Have you guys talked on social media or text about this? Because I can't imagine how he must be feeling. Because have you talked to him at all?
No, sir. I sure haven't. I kind of want to get his reaction on how he felt, because I'm sure he thought he was sitting pretty in first place. Tell us. Go ahead. Since I couldn't submit anything until after I got back to the ramp, or back, into the Crockett family resort area, Nobody knew that I had done anything. It was just me, and I had to cross that lake, and I went up there, and I pulled up in there, and I ran into one of the guys I fished with, Daryl Granger, and I was like, man, I caught it. Yeah, I think I caught about 110 inches. He said, you better get up there and submit it. And I took off running, and it took me a while to get, because the service, AT&T didn't work. And so I stressed for probably 20, 30 minutes, and I was having a really hard time getting them submitted. And then they cut us off. The deadline was 3:30, but Mr. Morales had said, oh, well, we'll make sure you get them in because of the service. And it took a while. It was crazy, but I got it finally.
Now, Chris Morales, just his experience as a tournament director always pays out, and he does a great job of making sure everybody has fun, but at the same time, making sure everything's done responsibly. So shout out to Chris Morales. There's a reason why this trail and the North Texas Kayak Championship up in here in Fort Worth, run by Duke Tran, they're the most successful trails, and a lot of it is just having that leadership of in Fort Worth, Duke Tran, and over there Central and South Texas, Chris Morales and Christopher Delgado, who helps out, and everybody in the Alphabet crew. Tight niche group, great group of guys that always seem to know how to party and have fun down in the South. So shout out to everybody at the Alphabet crew. Let's talk a little bit before we break down, because I know talking to you, me and Jeff were, you were breaking down when you caught him, and that was an epic story in itself. With this, you running out of power on your battery and lines out and fish submitting. That's a great story, and we definitely want to touch on that. But tell us a little bit about how pre-fishing went. What did you find in pre-fishing, and did it at any point lead you to believe that you were going to have, a big day on tournament day?
It really didn't. I fished one day I had gone, a few weeks before the tournament, I went and fished the end toward the dam, which is where I always like to start on lakes. I worked that area out and just caught some decent fish, but I wasn't catching the bigs like everybody else that was pre-fishing. I kept seeing these 20s, 23s, 22s, these really nice fish being caught, and I wasn't finding them. I didn't break 20 inches in pre-fishing. The day before the tournament, we had kind of a blackout there for a while, and that Friday before the tournament, I went to that area where I was, and I caught some nice fish, and I had a gut feeling that there was some really good fish there, but I didn't catch any. In fact, the day of the tournament, that morning, I was over there, and there was a little shad spawn going on, and the bulkheads there, they had, I don't know if you've ever seen them. Those bass were running down the bulkheads, and the shad were just, going up and up and up, and I hooked some big ones in there, and I just didn't get lucky at that morning and catch them. But once that shad spawned, once the sun gets up, the shad went out deep somewhere, and I thought, well, there was this in my mind. I was wanted to go fish a point off of some islands that were deep, and I thought, well, maybe there's some fish there. I went. It's a couple miles across the stumps. It's really tough on that lake with those stumps. And I made it over there, and I had I found a couple of small bass there, and it didn't work out. And I thought, well, I got to go somewhere. I still was trying to figure out where these big bass were. I went back and worked the shoreline a little bit for some flipping docks like a lot of people did. And I just caught a couple more fish, and they were like 16, 17-inch bass. And I thought it was getting pretty late. It was probably 1 o'clock. And I thought, well, if I'm going to go back to that spot where I started at, because I just felt like there was some good bass there somewhere. And I knew that there was a little deep area pretty close to them. And I thought that's where they might have gone. And I trekked all the way across that lake again and went back over there, and it paid off.
Boy, did it. That's an understatement.
When I went back across, it was, maybe a good mile in that lake, and it was stumps, and I was running a Jackson, and I don't know if you know how they are. When you hit a stump with their pedal drive, it just kicks up. Yeah. So I was as fast as I could go, and I would hit those stumps, and it would kick up. I'd go out and pop it back down and keep going, and so that's how that went.
So you weren't running a motor on your kayak?
I had XI3 on the bow, and I used it for spot lock. But when I was crossing through all that stuff, I have to go too slow, or you would just tear things to pieces.
Yeah.
So I would pull it up, and I was paddling all that weight across there. But that was the only way I could get across anywhere fast.
So would you say one of the things that, especially something as a new angler, because, like you mentioned, as far as kayak fishing and bass fishing, you're relatively new. One of the things that it's trying, as myself and Jeff, you can tell us a little bit about your side of this. It's deciding when to run and gun, try to hit as much spots as you can, and when to just, power pole or just anchor in and work a spot over. Do you feel like you have it sounds like you're more of a run and gun, let me look for him, not the type of guy that's going to sit down and break down a spot unless you're in them. How would you describe yourself there as an angler?
Last year I found them here. I'm going to sit on this history and catch them. At our classic last year was a good example. First day of our classic, I did the same thing. I found some bigs late in the day, and they were in the afternoon. And it was a point that was heavily fished all day by bass boats. So, and I ended up, I think I was sitting in like 8th place. I don't remember the inches. I thought, all right, the next day I'm going to get up. That's where I'm going to go, and I'm going to hold that spot if I could beat the boat. And I did. And I sat there too long, all day long, holding that history. I thought, oh, they're going to be back. But they didn't come back. And so I decided this year, if they're not there, I'm going to move. And so I've kind of changed my style, and it seems to be paying off for me this year a little bit better.
That's awesome. Jeff, what about you?
For me, I've been kind of sporadic with that. I fish some places where even my first time there, I kind of Google Earth it, kind of do scout and talk to a lot of people that might have fished there, kind of come up with a game plan, and then go out there and just take an area and just dissect that area. But I found out lately when I'm doing more of a running and gunning and seeing an area and trying to pinpoint what I'm looking for, it seems like I've been being a little more successful. So I'm slowly changing back to that. That's how I used to fish. Moving that a big 14-foot Hobie sometimes kind of wears you down though. So, but that's kind of the area. What I'm going to do now. I fish plastic more than I fish anything anyway. So I do fish slower once I find where I'm going to go. But I'm getting where I'm. It's nothing for me to go across a lake like you did, just because you think something might be different, or the way the wind's blowing, or just weather, trees, grass, whatever you're looking for. For me, I figure out what I'm looking for, but I might go around the whole lake, looking for. It might be something like grass around a lay down, and beat up that spot if that's how I feel like I'm going to catch them. It does me no good to keep going down a bank or something like that, because in my mind, that's where they're at. And I know I'm going to fish that a lot harder than everything else.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think, and I don't follow boat tournaments that much, but I think KVD, Kevin Van Dam was one of those that pioneered that mentality that you see in pro sports now, which is advanced analytics. And his game plan is the more casts. It's a numbers game.
Right.
If you're doing more casts, then you're gonna get more bass, kind of thing. I'm not experienced to weighing on that mentality, but I mean, obviously he found success at it. So, Ricky, Jeff just mentioned, he says kind of like a soft plastic guy. What is your go-to bait? What is your confidence? You consider yourself a power fisherman, a finesse fisherman, and what do you feel is your most your favorite bait to throw out?
These days I've gotten to where I kind of, in the mornings, I like to throw a lipless, right there at daylight for a little bit, and shaky heads. If I'm fishing deep, I really am comfortable with the shaky head in 20 foot of water. Depends on, where I'm fishing. The bass that I caught though on that lake last Saturday was one of the flashy swimmers by owner. Yep. So, it has a little underspin is what it is. And I had a white Kitech on it. And during the shad spawn, that I don't know what that little underspin does, but I think it kind of looks like a little bit of a shad, and that worked really good for me. I caught most of my fish that day on that.
So let's talk a little bit about how you eventually got, like, let's go to the meat and potatoes of this, because this is where it gets really interesting. Before Lines Out, I mean, Tyler Howell, I like to watch and follow along. And I see Tyler Howell leading, by 5 inches first place. I'm thinking in my mind, he's got it. I'm one of those guys that I look down and people think, if he has 102, and I can't remember who was in third place, had a 97. But I always look at who's the guy that has 4 fish and it's close to the top, because the one that has 4 fish and all of a sudden gets his fish may go from the 20th to first place. Now I was looking at it, I couldn't see your name. Your name didn't stood out, so I wasn't. I was thinking, well, the guys second and third place might catching up if they upgrade. I saw who was in fourth, who had the biggest four fish, and was missing the 5th fish, and that led me to believe, if he gets a 20-inch, then Tyler Howell might, have some competition. How many inches do you feel you have before Lines Out? I'm assuming you caught your limit, because you mentioned you caught like 12 fish. So, before, not Lines Out, I'm sorry, before the tournament went offline, how many inches did you have roughly, if you remember?
I don't really know what it was. Before I moved over and caught those last 4 big fish, I think I was like at 85 inches, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
113.
Right. And
you upgraded what, 30 inches? Like, no, you updated almost 40 inches in an hour. In an hour?
That's what it came down to. My first fish that I caught, it was the 4 big fish is what won me the tournament. The first one was right at 130, and then the 26-inch one came at 240.
And that was your last one.
That was the last one. So those 4, the first one I wrote it down was 23 inches was the first one. That was 130 at 214. I caught a 22 3/4, and then at 224, which is 10 minutes later, I caught a 23.5. And then 15 minutes after that, I caught the 26. That's how quick they came.
Wow.
And
at what point did you figure you had it in the bag? Like, you didn't
after the second one, I thought I had it. After that, the second fish, I thought I was at least up there, and then the third one, when I caught that 23.5, which I was thinking, that my biggest before this was 24.25. And so this was a good fish for me. And I was really excited about that one as well. And I really excited and could not believe I caught that 26 10 minutes later. It just was unbelievable.
Did you feel like you needed oxygen to catch your breath?
I don't know how I was staying alive.
I'm just saying. I mean, I have massive heart attack at that point.
It was crazy. The 26, when he came, he made 2 or 3 good runs that was like, I just don't know how I survived not losing him during those. But at the one point, he came right up next to the boat, and I thought, all right, I'm going to get him now. And I got my dip net. I was about to go in there, and she saw that net.
They see the net and they go crazy.
I was in almost 13 foot of water, and she went straight down. There was no stopping her, just until she hit the bottom. It was just all I could do. I was holding it over the side, and my pole was there, and I was like trying to get the drag a little bit loose, because I was thinking something's going to give, either the rod or the line, which was 15-pound fluoro. So I didn't have like a heavy line on it. And she finally got to bottom, and then after that, she gave me some relief, and I started gaining some ground on her and got her in.
How long did it take you to boat her once you hooked it?
There's no way I could tell on time. It seemed like forever. It was a long time, because she came up and made a couple of good runs, and one of them was like, they always want to go under your boat. she came up under the boat and came up on the back side of me. And yeah, I was trying to turn my XI3 off because I was like, oh, she's going to get in that prop and she's going to get cut. You know how all that stuff going through your mind. Where's she's going to
worst case scenario
at? Somehow I survived it.
When did you realize you had like a big bass, like a special bass?
It never really crossed my mind that I could get one that would fill the whole board. And when she did that, I thought, man, I don't know if I'll ever do this again. And the whole ride back across that lake, I was just thinking about all that was getting in my head. But yeah, when she surfaced and I was about to net her, that's when I really realized this was a monster as well. Like I said, I fished a lot of redfish, and she was pretty close to being too big of a redfish. At 28 Texas, you got to throw them back. And she's at 28, and those big old redfish. But those 28-inch redfish down, a lot of them are 8 pounds, 9 pounds. And for her to be that much bigger at that length, she had a lot. It was crazy.
So they weren't like really spawning or anything like that. Just caught them off a point.
Yes, sir. Well, it was a drop off there by some bulkheads that I know they had been feeding the shad spawn in the morning. So I don't think she was coming off of the bed, or any of them were.
At what depth were they biting?
There was drop offs on both sides. It kind of went like this, and up on the top it was maybe 3.5, 4 foot, and then at the bottom was close to 13. I couldn't see any of the big bass down in there, but every now and then I would see one. I was constantly with my live scope, kept looking around, see if I could find anything. And I'd see a little blip up on the side, and I would throw over it as far as I could and swim it back to them. And that's usually when they hit it. And they must have all been feeding, because every time I did that, I caught them. Yeah.
Nice.
It's incredible to find like a wolf pack, Jeff. Like you when we think about wolf pack bass, generally, like I had something similar. Well, not even close to that. Let me rephrase, but in the sense that of finding wolf pack bass, you see busting shad on top water. You figure, okay, a lot of movement. There might be a wolf pack here. Let me throw in there. Usually they'll be in the somewhere in between the 12, 16, maybe a 19 to 20 incher. Have you ever, Jeff? Have you ever seen a wolf pack that's gonna have 20, 23s, 26?
I here in Louisiana, I found a few places where there was some 17s, a group of 17s. Maybe might have had one bigger than that, but typically whenever I'm around something like that, it ranges from 12-inch to 15-inch fish. Very seldom do I hook up with something over 15 in those circumstances. That's where you just looking to get your 5 fish on the board, and then move on. Is what I'd be thinking. I never would imagine that 20, more or less 26. That's just right timing. But I mean, imagine they're there. It's the opportunity in finding them. But I haven't been that lucky.
No. But and in Ricky's case, with all due respect, it wasn't like more luck than anything. Like you said, you scouted out the place, right. You saw it, you heard in the morning, so you knew what you were doing. Like this is not, I stumbled upon fish and I got lucky. You really worked on analyzing, thought it through, made moves that you've. Otherwise, a lot of anglers would have said, man, if I have to trek 1 mile over all those stumps, and that's going to be, 30, 40 minutes of me not casting just to get from one spot to another. But you made that commitment. You made that commitment because you saw something. So it's a hard-earned, well thought out plan that just happened to work out better than you expected. Is that a safe? Yeah. Is that a safe way to? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when I say lucky, you put yourself in an opportunity where your luck was because of the work and the commitment you made. It's making good decisions. It could have been the difference of the bait you used. You could have thrown something different and may not have ever caught those fish. But you made all the right decisions at the right time, and Lady Luck got you the bites.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Luck is always going to play a factor. And I think, I can't remember who said it. I had somebody on the podcast and said it perfectly. You have to, in order to win, you have to be in a position where luck plays a factor. Like nobody's going to catch the five biggest fish in a tournament by luck. They might by luck catch the biggest bass that wins them the tournament, but they're not going to be all 20 inches just by luck.
Right.
You have to put yourself in a position where luck can play a factor in your favor, right? And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's one of those things where you cross your T's. You cross your T's, you dot your I's, and you have a game plan, and then you just hope it pays out. You're not just going out there and winging it and not knowing what to throw, where to throw it, or just throwing aimlessly. But it is like Jeff, you mentioned it. There is a luck factor involved, but it's that combination.
It's definitely a conversation. Look, can't talk. 6 inches, but it's not like when I say luck, it's not like I got in the boat, I went in this canal, and I caught 113 inches fish, and I was just throwing this and doing this. No, it comes with playing it. The luck is not losing the fish. Luck is making that perfect cast, and it actually made the perfect cast, and it did everything it was supposed to do. The fish was where it was supposed to be. You hooked up, you got it in the boat. And like you said, when it went straight down, I can imagine what your brain was doing at that point. Me, I'd been freaking out. Be like, here we go, because my last big tournament, I lost 2 fish really early, and it pretty much cost me a lot of inches as the day went on. And the opportunity was there. I didn't get them in the boat. So 26 inches going straight down. Tell me how you were feeling.
Yeah, I just thought it was going to break. I really did. I thought the line was, there was no way. When I say it, when it was going on, the rod, I pushed it as far out away as I could because I couldn't stop it from wanting to go and touch the edge of the kayak. And I just felt like if it made that contact, I would lose that give in my arms, which was, help give some strength to my rod and my string, my fluorocarbon. And so I was just the whole time, I was just trying to give it as much play as I could to, give some relief to my line. It was crazy.
It's great. Yeah, I was supposed to say, it's crazy how quickly your mind goes when you hook something, a fish. And I've never hooked anything like that big. Biggest bass for me was 22 and a quarter and 3/4, I think. But your mind is always like, worst case scenario is going to happen. Mm-hmm. You're always surprised when you land it. You're always like, I can't believe I landed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's kind of like your mind is protecting yourself from the heartache by thinking, it's quite possibly you're gonna lose it. Let's not get our hopes up here. But you finally end up catching it. I mean, when did it sink in? Like, I think you mentioned when it hit the board, that's when you're like, okay, this is mm-hmm. something special.
Yeah.
How were you feeling afterwards?
There was a lot of shock. I was like, just couldn't believe it at that point. And there was a lot of stress into it because I haven't submitted one fish all day long, not a one of them. And so I was in my mind, it's like, well, I got to protect my phone. If it falls over the water, it's over with. I have it on a leash, but still I'm thinking, if anything happens, this is over. All this is over with. And I was like crazy stressed over that. And so I couldn't really let myself realize how big that 26 inch was because I was just trying to get to where I could submit my fish. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
The last tournament in Caddo, I had the same problem, get my fish submitted. I had to go find service. And even though I knew I wasn't in the lead, I was stressing over that. So I can only imagine, that ride back, your legs your legs are shaking because you're trying to get back as fast as you can.
It helped that I was pedaling back just to relieve some of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, kind of get
all
that.
adrenaline.
Yeah, like you mentioned, get that adrenaline out of it. Talk us a little bit about that last hour, because you mentioned while we on the pre-recording we were talking, you were at like 5% battery or something like that. You had no signal. This was one of those things where it's like if you can never get this fish submitted, if you would have ran out of battery, this story wouldn't be worth telling because it would completely destroy your credibility because nobody
Yes.
would have believed you. So this is not like one of those stories of like you can tell this. And second of all, nobody cares about about the
Yeah.
fish loss that cost you the tournament. Everybody wants to know. I've had somebody had posted this the other day that if they wouldn't have lost the last two fish, they would have won the national championship. And I was like, nobody cares. Like, don't you didn't. Don't take it away from the winner. The winner won. He caught him. He did what he had to do, whether you really lost him or not. At the end of the day, part of your angling skills is not just getting a bite, but hanging on to that bite. So I've never been a fan of somebody saying, oh, I would have won it if I hadn't lost this to a big fish. I have mixed feelings about that, but to each his own. I'm not saying anybody's saying it with any malice or anything like that. But for you, what was the stress level? Because tell us a little bit about what was going on with your phone, your battery, and the deadline to submit, and how are you managing all this in your brain?
So I have it right behind my seat. I carry my 12-volt 100 amp hour battery with a USB port on it, and I carry a backup cable to charge. Well, when I started going to that area, I knew I had like 38%, and that was probably 12 o'clock. So I got my cable while I was crossing, and I plugged it in, and I thought, I'm going to put my phone and get this thing charged up. Well, unbeknownst to me, that the cable had gone bad, and I couldn't get it to charge. And so all I could think of is I got to turn this phone off. And so I turned the phone off. Turned it back. When I got over there and I caught my first fish, I turned it back on and caught it. Turned it back off. As you take your pictures, you try to get your stuff, but then I was turning it off and on for each one of those fish, which is really, to me, was stressing me out as well. And by the time the end of the day, I had 8% left, which feels like crazy to me. And so even when I made it back to over there, the boat ramp, and went up in there, I had not only did I have a low battery, I had to get onto their Wi-Fi, and I also needed to get plugged in to keep my phone alive. So that was like crazy stress.
All right, so everybody listening, bring extra batteries for your phone. You can grab you one of these little juice boxes and keep all your stuff charged. GoPro.
You sure your cables are good?
I actually shout out to Quad Log. They're pricey, but because of my social media growth, which is not huge, I have like 3,000 followers. But Quad Log actually reached out to me, and they gave me they told me, pick anything from our catalog, just post about it, you get it for free. I'm like, all right, cool. And I get to keep my phone charged wirelessly with the same battery that I'm running my fish finder all the time on the tournament, which is great. So if and I'm not sponsored by them, I did get those items for free. Honestly, they're a little pricey, but if you fish tournament, go to Quadlog. You can follow them on Instagram, Quadlog Marine or quadlog.com. I think it's a company from Australia. The quality of their product is amazing. Again, not trying to do a shameless plug here, but those I love them. And the cool thing about it is you don't have to plug in, and they're watertight. Like the cable goes. I've had times where the water gets into the hole, and the connections are watertight, and I've never had a problem with them. So go check them out, Quad Lock. And again, I mentioned it just because we're talking about it. One thing, and Ricky, I think this is, useless advice now because you got it done. But I've heard, and I don't know how true it is, turning on and off your phone is actually worse because it takes battery. It's like stop and go traffic. So if you're running out of gas and you stop your car at a light, it's not running, but it takes more energy, more gas when you start hitting that pedal too. So from what I heard, even though it's not gas powered, but turning on and off, what it does, it while it turns on all the apps and all the things like that, it takes up more of your battery life. What I
Wow.
heard.
So I might have been hurting myself.
Yeah, so
I felt
my
like
advice,
trying to find the signal the whole time.
Yeah,
because my battery was going way
That
quicker
will
than
do
it
it.
should have. It was like, it felt like it was in that search mode. It was like SOS at the top, and it was like that constant trying to connect, I felt like was draining my battery.
yeah. So a little bit of advice for anybody that's listening. If this ever happens to you, if you don't have signal, just put it in airplane mode. Just turn off the connections, because you're not gonna have signal, so it doesn't matter. You're gonna have to upload them when you get back to your to the boat dock, and lower the biggest thing I think is lowering the backlight. That's what eats up the more juice, because it's a whole light. So turn off all Wi-Fi, close all the apps, obviously except for 10EX or Fishing Chaos or whatever your tournament use. That's the only app you have open, and just turn off the connections, because if you don't have any signal, there's no point in having it, because like you said, when it searches for a signal, it drains more battery. And lower the backlight as much as you can, obviously a little bit, just to see what you're doing. But I mean, advice, useless advice for you now, Ricky, but for those that listen.
Hey, it's probably going to happen again, so I will use that advice, I'm sure.
Yeah, but Ricky, again, congratulations. What was the the overall reaction to? Were you at the award ceremony? I'm assuming.
Oh yes, sir. I stayed with the biggest group of us with the with Texas Kayak Bass League was staying there at that resort, and so there was 117 anglers, and I wouldn't doubt 75 of them was at the awards, and we were all camping there. Everybody was super excited about it and congratulating me. It was a really fun afternoon, and then we also stayed the night, and there was a whole lot of the group that stayed and helped celebrate Saturday night. So it was a lot of fun.
How was the celebration? Did it get you crazy? Can you talk about it on live show?
Yeah, there was no alcohol left in camp. So we can all be fresh alcohol next tournament coming up there, Canyon Lake.
And according to going back to what we're talking in the beginning, is it your third tournament in a row that you break your PB?
Well, the last one at Ladybird during the practice day, I broke it then, and which was a 22 and a half or 3/4. So it's horrible, I don't remember. And then on tournament day, I caught a 24 1/4, which didn't win big bass, which is crazy. Somebody else caught one at 24 1/4 that day as well, but he caught his early in the morning, and I caught mine in the evening. And they went by what time of the day.
Yeah.
And so that was my previous. So I've just been getting better and better as far as catching the bigger bass, it seems like.
What do you think has contributed to that?
Sir?
What do you think has contributed to that? Live scope or knowledge?
No, I've had the last. I've had it. I think in my mindset, I'm looking for the bigger bass. I'm not looking for the limits. I'm trying to go. That's what I'm focusing on, is trying to find bigger bass. And instead of trying to catch a limit and then look for bigger bass, this year my focus is to find the bigger bass. And if I catch a limit, I catch a limit.
Well, you certainly did both on this tournament. Congratulations, Ricky.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. That's an amazing bag. The whole thing is just awesome. I mean, it's just awesome.
The only thing I feel bad for you, Ricky, is you probably peaked at your second year of kayak fishing.
Right?
You might as well just go back to red fishing.
That's right. My brother's been trying for me to go down to Port O'Connor and go red fishing with him. I'll just park that kayak and go with him for a while.
Yeah, might as well, because it's like, well, I mean, there's nothing left for you to accomplish now. Have you fished any national trails, and does this kind of give you more confidence to fish a national trail?
I haven't.
Sam Rayburn has coming up soon.
Yeah,
sir. And man, if I could have done that at Rayburn, wouldn't that be something?
Woo.
No, I'm excited about fishing the Hobie BOS up there. I didn't. That will be the first national trail for me.
That you haven't. So you're gonna go to Sam Rayburn for that.
Yes, sir.
Nice. I think this might be a little bit too far for you, but the Bassmaster at Possum Kingdom. Any chance you'll do that one?
Probably not.
Probably not. Right?
What month's that in?
I think July. I think it's in
Yeah,
July.
that's right. That's why we did the West Side Veterans Tournament. I think that's what it was because there was some reason why I didn't think I could make that one, but I'll be at the other one.
Yeah, Sam Rayburn should be fun.
Oh, perfect time.
Ricky, I gotta say, and this may be unfair comparison. Can't speak English. Comparisons. That's the word I'm looking for. What you did is kind of reminiscent of what, and I don't know if you know him or heard of him, but Guillermo Gonzalez, which is arguably the best kayak angler here in Texas. Arguably, there's other names that we can throw in that conversation, of course, but he's definitely one of those names.
Yeah.
He did something similar on Eagle Mountain Lake for the KBF Trail for about 2 years ago, where that was even that. Well, that bag wasn't as epic as yours, but we did had Jody Quinn with 109 inches with 17 minutes to go. And 109 inches, I mean, you have 109 inches. It's 17 because they didn't turn lines out for that tournament. For some reason, Chad Hoover or whoever was forgot to turn the line, or maybe they didn't want to turn not lines out. I keep saying like offline. They never turned the tournament offline. So Jody Quinn is leading with 17 minutes to go or something like that. 27, 17. I think it's 27 minutes to go. He has 109 inches, and Guillermo Gonzalez catches like a 24-incher and gets 110 inches, which to me, that's one of the most epic clutch things I've ever seen. Just because in this case, Tyler Howell is, 102, which could win you most tournament, but it's not a given here in Texas. But 109, it's given anywhere until somebody puts 110. What you did is really reminiscent of that, where you just, found him, came in clutch, and just annihilate him with, 20 minutes to go. What do you're pretty new to the sport, but, you know yourself as an angler. You know how good you are, even though you haven't had a chance to prove yourself on tournaments. And being honest and not trying to be humble, how do you rank yourself as a kayak bass angler now, in the second year of doing this?
I would still put myself in the middle of the pack, honestly. This year has been epic for me. I'm seeing myself grow really a lot this year as far as my skill level. I feel like I'm going to get better. I'm starting to figure out the patterns. There's a lot of patterns to learn as far as bass fishing. I do a lot of research study. I go in and say, all right, what lures do I fish for bass ponds? I just don't know. I'm having to research it. And so I'm learning this and I'm trying to figure that out. And so I got a long ways to go. There's no way I would be in any consistency of people like Guillermo and people like that. So I got a ways to go. I know that.
Well, you're definitely on the right track.
You're definitely doing your homework.
Yeah, definitely.
You're definitely doing your homework.
Yeah, for you to be on the last year, I think you mentioned the year we were in March, and I think you broke your PB 3 times now.
Yes, sir.
I mean that doesn't happen by accident or by luck. That's you're working on something, you're dialed in, and you're figuring it out. And like you mentioned, maybe the fact that you're moving more instead of just breaking down a small body of water is playing a big part. But I mean, there's stepping stones that's going to get you to obviously become better. You may never have the 113 inches and a 26-inch bass, but it's that consistency, I think, that separates the, Russ Snyder's, Guillermo Gonzalez, Drew Gregory's, It's just that they're always there. Christine Fisher, they're always constantly there in the money. That's and you definitely seems like you're heading in that direction. So congratulations, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Definitely so. I mean, if you doing your three best in the last few months, you're definitely figuring out something for the big bass, and that's probably the hardest thing to do. Go and catch fish when you fish as much as I do. I can go catch fish, but to catch the right fish, and that takes commitment and understanding and noticing every little detail you can.
Yeah, I have found you're right there. You've got to pay attention to the little details the whole day. You just can't lose focus. And
Right.
I'm trying to learn that.
Right.
How much time do you spend out of water, in your daily life thinking about bass fishing?
I probably get in 40 hours a week.
Yeah, that's what you say. The easier question is how many hours you don't. I think it's when you're sleeping, but you might be dreaming about it anyway.
It's like researching, it's from one to the next. It's like I've probably already put 30 hours of trying to figure out this next lake. And I just started on it, it's just so I put a ton of time into the research to try to get somewhere with it.
When is your next tournament, by the way?
It is coming up Canyon Lake, April 22nd.
Oh, Canyon Lake, that's right. That's going to be a great tournament.
I've never fished that lake either. I've floated the Guadalupe right below it many times, but never fished it.
Well, and the thing is, you live at a great area for bass fishing. I mean, coming from a North Texan, I mean, I envy what you guys fish race. And we got some great fishing over here, Possum Kingdom. We got Oichivy relatively close. We got, Lake Fork is more east than south, I would say, but still, you guys have some amazing fisheries down there and so much, diversity in the types of lakes that it's really fun fishing down there in Central and Southeast Texas. So congratulations again, Ricky.
Thank you, guys.
It's an amazing accomplishment, man.
I appreciate it.
I know you. Go ahead.
It'll be a long time before I get this off my mind. You just keep replaying it over in your head. It's crazy.
Did you have any GoPros or anything like that? And this made you think about getting some GoPros?
Nothing. If I didn't be able to land them, I would have never been able to prove it
and tell the story either.
True. It was just one of those perfect days, I suppose.
Well, again, amazing job.
Thank you,
Ricky. Before we let you go, we've had you for an hour, and again, thank you for your time, and coming onto the show and talking about it. And again, can't say enough. Congratulations for what you did. We wish you the best. I want to give you a couple of few minutes. I know you don't have a big social media following. I don't know if you have companies that kind of help you out, friends, family that you want to thank.
It's my wife Crystal and my son John. Of course, they support me and keep me going. Some of my fishing buddies, Joe Booth, Chris Jackson, Daryl Granger. We're all working, trying to figure some of these lakes out ahead of time, and just sharing the camaraderie of all of Texas Kayak Bass League. I appreciate all those guys.
Yeah, you're really with a good group of guys down there, and girls too. I know that's a few of the ladies out there, great anglers, by the way. Wesley Gray and some other ones out there. So great representation for the ladies too over there in the Texas Kayak Bass League. So congratulations to everybody taking part in that tournament, and good luck on their next one. Ricky, I'll let you go. And again, thank you, Jeff. You want to stick around and we'll wrap up the show.
All right.
And thanks again.
Thank you guys. Y'all have a good night.
We're looking for you.
All right.
Yeah, we'll see you at Sam Ray, and we'll probably follow along wherever you're going.
We need to do that.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. And what a great story.
That is great. And hats off to him. Great guy. I mean, just listen to him talk, humble, and he's doing something. I mean, it's, I fish a lot. I mean, I fish a lot, and he's taking lakes and he's dissecting the lake before he even goes there is a great start, but sometimes that's what you got to do. You just got to pick out a lake and start just beating up every corner, find out every creek, and and just figure it out before you even get to have an idea where to start. And that's a big part in kayak fishing, is where do you start?
Yeah. And what I like about what he said is, that constantly trying to get better.
Yeah,
Like you mentioned,
absolutely.
he just broke his PB, 3 times this year. And they weren't like small PBs, like 20, 22 inches, I get it for Texas, 22 inches is not the biggest, it's big, won't be the same as catching it on Colorado and some other state, but still it
Right.
is a big fish. It's something to be proud of, but it's just
Absolutely.
that constant work that you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get better at catching big fish, and not just, speaking into existence, but, put it in practice. My mom would always tell me, when you pray to God for help, you have to act.
Right.
You can't just pray him to get you out of debt and financial debt and then go out there and spend a bunch of money on useless
Buy a new
stuff.
rod and reel. You can't do that.
Yeah, you don't pray to get a money to rain down from heaven. You pray to, get the
opportunity
and the wisdom to how to spend your money. And I just using that as an example.
But yeah, you're absolutely, I mean,
Yeah.
nail on the head.
It's great to see how, that aspect of Ricky just, this is what I want and I'm going to put it in practice. And it takes commitment off the water, man. It's not just going out there on the water. Even if you're fun fishing, it's like that time to, okay, let me look at what I want to do and start observing, make observations. And each person has, goes into fishing for different reasons.
Right.
It's not for me to question what your reason is. Some people like to go to the same lake because that's where they want to, that's where they know they catch them and that's where they're going to have fun. And that's great. That there's no shaming that. If that's what you want to do, if you only have like maybe a weekend a day out of the month, or you can go fishing, hey, go to wherever you're going to catch them and have fun. Then there's people like Ricky, like he wants to get better at it. So he's joining tournaments, he's talking to people, he's doing his research, and he's going to bodies of water where he hasn't fished before. And that's how you become a better angler. No shame what everybody else is doing. It's just what you put in is what you're going to get out. If you're going to go out there and just throw the same jackhammer, chatterbait all the time, right, then that's as far as you're going to grow.
Right. Agree 100%. I mean, there's 25 minutes from my house. I got a little place I hook my boat up in the afternoons, go out there for a couple hours. I go there because it's close and I know I can go out there and catch fish. But when I do go, I'll grab 3 or 4 rods with something different on it. And that's when I work on fishing with a different swim bait or underspin or something, just to practice moving it or something like that. So when you do go to other lakes, you realize that you can't fish every lake the same way. You can't. There's no way. You have to learn to adjust to where you're at and what the conditions are there. So yeah, you definitely get better the more you travel. Definitely.
And if you want to get better, I try to put that in practice. And again, I haven't found the success as Ricky has found. I found some of it, but I don't always go to the lake I'm going to catch. Now, granted, there's been 2 or 3 weeks I haven't gone fishing. Then I'll probably go to my honey hole and fish it. But for the most part, I'm like, what lake have I not tried? And what lake am I struggling to catch fish? And that's where I'm going. Because that's the only way I'm going to get better. If I'm, going Northeast Texas and just throwing on grass, because that's the only grass patch there is. And that's where they always are. Again, you're only going to grow as far as you allow yourself to grow.
Yep.
So it's always my advice to anybody is just challenge yourself. Go to places, every now and then go to your confidence place to kind of remember how it is to hook in a big bass. But, don't get too comfortable with it. Try to get out of your comfort zone and just try to improve on something and figure it out. Go to where you have to think how to catch them versus just, throwing what you always throw.
Yeah. Even though I haven't had a lot of success in the in the pro series in kayak. I say a lot of success. I've done okay, but I found I get better each day that I'm there, and that's my main goal right now is to be able to learn and each time get better because you're figuring things out. So next time I go to Lake Fork, I'll fish that one better. Next time I go to Caddo, I'll fish that one better. But that's how you learn. But that should be your goal if you go to a new place. Is you just want to be better when you leave than you were when you got there.
Yeah, and the learning curve is going to be different. Obviously, Ricky's learning curve was really short and sharp, and he's managing to put a smack down early in his kayak bass fishing career, so to speak.
Well,
and for some of us, it might take a little bit longer, but it's worth the effort.
When I went from a boat to a kayak, and I first went out there, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm these guys fish a few times a year in a kayak. I live in a boat on the water. My first tournament, 0. Second tournament, 0. And it's like, okay, and it took a lot of changing of my styles of fishing. And it's actually made me a better fisherman. And I got more respect for the guys fish out of a kayak than I do a boat any day of the week. After fishing so many tournaments now, it's amazing. Our Caddo Lake, almost 200 inches. I know guys that fish professionally go out there and they don't catch 10 fish like that. It's just been an amazing thing. It makes you cast better. You learn how to hook up a lot better. You don't standing on a boat. You can set a hook. Punch is my favorite thing to do when I'm in a boat. That's a heavy ounce weight, big thick grass or in something. So when I set a hook, I'm like trying to rip the head off. You can't necessarily do that in a kayak. You flip off the other side. So yeah, it's been a real learning experience for me, but I'm loving every minute of it.
Oh yeah. It challenged you physically in ways that bass boat fishing, and nothing wrong with bass boat fishing. It's just
no, not at all.
Different dynamic, it's just the nature of the beast. Well, Jeff, again, gotta give you a couple of seconds here to again shout out. Where can people follow you, and where can people listen to your podcast before we let you go? And sponsors too.
Okay, I'm across all social media. As far as like Instagram, Apple. Let's see, YouTube. I can't even think of them. All the ones you're on, and then some. I've been, they told me something the other day, some name I've never heard of, and I was on that one too. Now I had people follow me from Kentucky, so I have no idea how that even came about. But I'm serious, I have no idea. But as far as sponsors, Southern Punch is my biggest sponsor to myself. Cajun Outboard Motors, they help me get my show going. But the big things that I support is the Fishers of Men organization, the Wounded Warriors. That's where I give my time back. I'm going to add more kayak stuff. I need to find more kayak people around me. Because this is, like I said, I just got into this the last couple of years, and I'm hoping that one day I can make every pro tournament and just fish. That's all I want to do is fish. So
nothing wrong with that.
Man, I appreciate it. I really appreciate you having me on the show, bud.
Jeff, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to have you on the podcast. And again, big props to you for what you're doing, especially for the Wounded Warriors program. I think that's a big thing. And it helps out people that I've lost a lot in their life, trying, absolutely. Serving. So big props to you for that. For those out there listening, we thank you. If you're going to listen to our episode on our podcast, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, do give us your 5-star reviews. It does really help out with the growth of the podcast. And remember, you can follow me on same thing, Bass Kayak and Beers at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And again, if you're going to be on the water, wear your PFDs. If you have a couple of beers when you're out there, please drink responsibly. Make sure you make it back home to your loved ones. This has been The Real Life on the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. Have a great night, everyone. Peace.
Good night, y'all.